Hi, my name's Phil. I like to talk about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss how the Attorney General, Suella Braverman, is having to furiously cover her tracks after disgracefully posting about the legal status, effectively, of Dominic Cummings in regard to his little trip to Durham and back, and when infected with COVID. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So, would you believe it? Another one of Boris Johnson's cronies in a little bit of hot water, in fact quite a lot of hot water at the moment. So essentially what happened, of course, was Dominic Cummings, through Boris Johnson, insisted that all cabinet ministers publicly backed him and proudly proclaimed that he'd acted legally and within the guidance. This was necessary because there was obviously a massive backlash against Dominic Cummings' behaviour, which after all was not party political. You know, there were people on the right just as much as on the left saying that this wasn't right and he should absolutely resign. Tory MPs calling for it. You know, Boris Johnson, it was not a given that he was going to be able to tough this out as he has done. So they had to get cabinet ministers to quickly jump on top of it. And Suella Braverman, who is the Attorney General, is a member of the cabinet and so was expected to do the same. However, she also holds the rather precarious position in cabinet because she's the government's legal advisor. You know, it's like we always say, to be an MP or even to be a government minister doesn't actually require any qualifications or training or anything like that. It's not entirely true. The post of Attorney General needs to be someone who is quite an experienced lawyer, very knowledgeable they need to be, because they are the ones who advise Cabinet and the Prime Minister about the legality of various actions. You know, they are the government's legal advisor. So part of this means that they are not allowed to express any legal views unless, of course, they've been properly considered, because they can't put themselves in a situation where a court would have to disagree with them. Because, you know, part of the reason for this is that Braverman is the head of the Crown Prosecution Service. So let us say that the offence that police have now considered Cummings to be guilty of was serious enough to prosecute him, to, in other words, take him to court rather than just say so or issue a fine. They didn't issue a fine in this case because they didn't catch him at the time. Now, in a situation like that, the Attorney General, as head of the CPS, the Crown Prosecution Service, could actually have a say on whether or not to proceed with that case. They can actually say, no, I don't think this is in the public interest, or yes, I think this is in the public interest. And that, although they don't preside over every case, of course, they can do. They have the authority to. So pronouncing on someone's guilt or innocence in such a glib manner, without even considering the facts of the case, without even knowing the facts of the case, let alone going through any proper legal consideration, would create a huge conflict of interest. So when other ministers were saying that Cummings didn't break the law, that was just viewed as politics. When Braverman did so, she was doing so as the Attorney General, and it becomes a serious legal issue. And it appears that she is now aware of just how serious this issue is. You know, it seems that she didn't at the time. You know, she didn't actually realise there was anything wrong with what she did. You know, because she's told Parliament this week, and read it out, there was no question whatsoever of my having provided any legal view on the matter. Now, that statement from her is important because it shows that she understands that she's not allowed to pronounce. So for any, you know, doubt amongst the public who may not realise what the role of Attorney General is, can be in no doubt that she is not allowed to express a view on Dominic Cummings's behaviour being lawful or not, because she says so to the House, and she's denied ever making any legal judgment. But she did. She did say that he hadn't broken any laws. She did this in various ways. She tweeted and supported a statement from Number 10 that suggested that Cummings had behaved legally. You know, and later on she also advised Cabinet of this more clearly as well. Now, as I say, it is very likely that she didn't understand her role in government. And that might sound strange, because she is an experienced lawyer. There's no doubt about that. She is an experienced lawyer, as an Attorney General needs to be. But she practiced law in the United States And this is why she was appointed to the role by Boris Johnson, because he wanted an Attorney General who could deliver him a politicised Supreme Court, packed out with right-wing appointments to mirror the system in America. Now, the previous Attorney General, Geoffrey Cox, wasn't really shaping up to Boris Johnson's, expectations, because when both he and Theresa May, because what both of them had to at various points with Parliament is to get the Attorney General to express a legal view on what they were doing with Brexit. And he refused to say something was legal when it was not. He would try and be diplomatic with his language to support the government, but he wouldn't stand up in front of Parliament and tell Parliament that a particular thing was legal when it was not. So that was no good for Boris Johnson. He needs someone who will act dishonestly and unconstitutionally. And it was also noted that there is another member of Cabinet who is directly involved in legal affairs. So Robert Buckland QC, who is the Lord Chancellor, is also, of course, not allowed to make random pronouncements on legal matters. And he was much more cagey in his defence of Dominic Cummings. Put simply, he definitely did not go around saying that Dominic Cummings had not broken the law. Legal experts noted immediately, in fact, at the time they were counterpointing what the two were saying, the Lord Chancellor and the Attorney General. The Attorney General was going, yeah, absolutely didn't break the laws. The Lord Chancellor is basically going, I think he acted, in the best interests as he saw at the time, but he made no judgment about the legal affair. But Braverman's folly, as I say, wasn't just in tweeting support for the notion that Cummings didn't break the law, but in allowing herself to be reported telling ministers in Cabinet that he had not broken the law. So she advised Cabinet that Cummings had acted legally, which of course then allowed them to be able to publicly say, oh no, he didn't break the law. Because of course they wouldn't know. I mean, Dominic Cummings is legally trained, but it's not exactly a stunning career. But the others, of course, not really. So not only did the Attorney General not know that he hadn't broken the law, but she, as I say, she didn't have the facts at the time anyway. They hadn't been considered. It was such a very quick reaction to the story. She had no reason whatsoever to say what she did. So she did provide a legal view on the matter. That's beyond doubt. That's provable. But she also got the legal view, which she's not even allowed to pronounce, very wrong, in a way that someone of her experience really shouldn't have. And the problem with this is it makes it then impossible for the police or the Crown Prosecution Service to properly investigate. Because let's say it were something where they had to prosecute, take Dominic Cummings to court. It wasn't in the end. It was minor breach. But let's say it was. They're in a very difficult position then. And this is almost certainly why Durham police had to bring out that fudged police statement, which to the legally trained was a clear confirmation that Cummings broke the law. But to the uninitiated who don't understand the language, you look at it and you think, oh, well, there seems to be some doubt here. And then that's what the layman would think. That's what I thought when I read it. But of course, I didn't think anything of it until I decided to see what legal experts had to say on the matter. And of course, that suited Boris Johnson and Dominic Cummings, but it didn't suit Justice. And she is being legally challenged about this by the Good Law Project, who are the same group who were involved in challenging the prorogation of Parliament last year and making sure Boris Johnson complied with the Benn Act. Now, ordinarily, of course, this would be a resigning matter. Of course, Boris Johnson has rewritten the rules on resignations. He has lied multiple times in Parliament in a way that is provable. And I don't just mean misusing statistics. I mean just straight up lies. You're not really supposed to do that. But he is basically normalising the practice now. Priti Patel, the Home Secretary, remained in post despite the bullying claims, left, right and centre, and will almost certainly still remain in post when she's found guilty by the tribunal as well. Dominic Cummings, of course, we know that. We'd have to go over that again. Very famously remained in post despite, it being quite clear that he should have been dismissed. Robert Jenrick is still in post despite having to admit that he broke the law in trying to fiddle the Treasury out of £40 million of taxes to help a Tory donor. So if anyone thinks Suella Braverman will be sacrificed by Boris Johnson for this, they are in for a shock. You know, it would have been easier for him to have sacrificed the likes of Jenrick and Priti Patel. You can understand him not wanting to sacrifice Cummings, but there's been other ones being involved in resigning matters and he's still kept with them. He's not going to get rid of her because she's also quite crucial to his plans to dismantle legal scrutiny of the government. It's very likely that he could not find another lawyer, because I say this is one of the very few posts in government where you do need qualifications. You need to be legally trained, you need to be experienced. So he's got a limited pool of people he can put into the role of Attorney General, and it would be potentially impossible for him to find anyone else who would be willing to act not only in the deeply dishonest way necessary, but also in the unconstitutional way to attack the Supreme Court. Because although there may be any number of MPs that are dishonest enough, you can get into serious legal trouble as Attorney General, as Braverman is potentially finding out. If you do that, other government ministers can lie at will, it seems, but you've got to be careful if you're in a position where lying can be illegal. But if there is one silver lining to this, from my point of view, it's that she appears to be as politically incompetent as any other of Johnson's cronies. Not stupid, of course. I'm not going to suggest that. She had an impressive legal career in the States. There's no denying that. She can't be dumb. But naive. Because she really shouldn't have said that. She should have been much more careful about the way she phrased things. And she wasn't. And that actually bodes well when you consider what she is in the post to do. Because if someone's going to do something truly awful, I would rather they were incompetent, because then they won't be able to do it as easily. Her actions will be challenged every step of the way. And if she makes a mess of her dirty work, then it will slow down the process of dismantling our independent judiciary considerably. Perhaps even long enough to hold out for Boris Johnson's removal from office, and it's very unlikely he'd be replaced with someone who'd be willing to do the same. So that is the situation as it stands now. This will not be the last we've heard about it, due to the very serious legal implications of Braverman's foolish actions, and also the fact that she is setting herself against our independent judiciary, so it is in a lot of people's interest to make sure that she is blocked from doing so as much as possible. So anyway, I hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. If you'd like to support the channel further, then please also click the Patreon link details. And until next time, I'll see you later.